Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call the February 6, 2019 Select Board meeting to order. No changes to the agenda. Announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to the voting that the board meeting is being video audio recorded, we have 3 additional announcements. The first will be by the DPW Director, Rob McNeil.
Thank you very much. Wanted to announce the release of the waste stream updates. We have a flyer that's going to be distributed through the Public Information Officer, the Town Manager's Office. You have a handout tonight. These will be sent out to all the town employees and a number of different media markets, and addresses essentially the 3 streams as have been discussed: the recyclable stream, recyclable waste stream, the compostable waste stream, and the non-recyclable, non-compostable waste stream, otherwise known as NERNIC. So this kind of gives a quick little breakdown of some of the items that are generally found in each of those categories. The signs are in English and Spanish to match the signage out at our facility. We've done some public outreach out at the facility over the weekend with the attendants, as well as this coming weekend and throughout this week. So we'll continue the education process. We appreciate people's comments and questions, and continue to work to reduce the material that's ending up through the compostable waste stream and ultimately ends up in our landfill. Be happy to take any questions, or if any constituents have contacted you with specific questions, I'm happy to try to answer those.
Just a comment, I see that you're recommending that the food scraps and mixed paper be in paper bags.
So
That's a new, that kind of goes back to growing up in the 60s. We used to do that. And then the idea would be that we would put it, if we have a big plastic bag that gets picked up by a hauler. Is that what your thoughts are?
So it's something that we're just, I guess, providing additional information for so people can understand it. The plastic bags that most things are delivered in currently, and this is mostly for the drop-off folks right now. The drop-off folks are delivering the compostable waste in clear plastic bags, and that's generally so that the attendants can see what are the contents.
Looking for contraband.
If they're ultimately cleaning up that stream at home and diverting plastic films and that sort of stuff that's been found in our study to be commingled with those compostable waste streams, and now they're diverting it properly into the NERNIC stream, I think the point on the note here, they still can be delivered in the clear plastic bags, but if someone wants to go to that extra step, and we shared this Thursday evening last week with the folks that were here for the public information session, they can also, right before they come to our facility, they could also dump their compostable waste from their kitchen waste into a doubled up or tripled up Stop and Shop bag that would also normally go in that compostable waste stream. They could take the plastic bag that everything was in and put that into the NERNIC stream. And then everything that they're putting in the compostable waste stream would be compostable. And you're essentially eliminating.
I believe when you did your sample, there were, I forget the percentage, but a high percentage of what's in the, quote, compostable digester stuff is plastic bags. So doing this would hopefully,
it would lessen the bags.
Some of that.
Correct.
That's a great idea. I think, I'll certainly start doing it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, and one part to that is these are ways to help educate people about why the process. Ultimately, the goal is to get to zero use of our landfill. It's there, and right now it's being used mostly with and only with what's fouling the compostable waste stream. So if we can get to zero with that compostable waste stream, as far as what's in there that shouldn't be, the length or the life of the landfill will really be significantly extended.
In your conversations with the haulers, how have they been receptive? How are they going to set up, sort of restaurants and businesses and things?
Yes. So that's basically the next step here. We've initiated discussion with the largest hauler, and we are trying to set up a meeting for this later this week to again continue to explore how that's going to launch, because it's an important step. As I mentioned before, 75% of what comes into our facility is delivered to us with private haulers. So it's an important step to take. We'll be working together to do that.
And I guess at the public information, at your information meeting, the mixed, you've got a mix of materials, sort of the paper water bottles that everyone thinks is better, that I've railed against, are going to go right to the landfill, as do the what do you call them, compostable plastic cups.
So I want to be very clear. The red column, the NERNIC, non-recyclable, non-compostable waste, does not go to the landfill. That gets diverted off island.
All right, so it'll still go there.
Still goes off island.
All right.
Yep.
But those materials, those aren't better. Like, people are sitting there saying this is a better solution for Nantucket, and I think we don't have the facilities to deal with some of those things.
Neither do a lot of the recycling facilities.
No, exactly. So they end up going, when we send them off, who knows? So anyway, it just, as an operator, it's a lot more expensive to purchase some of these items that are supposed, and I look at it as sort of greenwashing. It sounds like it's great in theory, but the reality is it doesn't compost, it doesn't break down, it lasts just as long as plastic, and it costs you 3 times as much. And so everyone thinks they're doing the right thing, and they throw it right in their garbage, thinking they're doing the right thing. Hey, this is going to compost. But, as I've said for years, it doesn't compost. And all we've done is make ourselves feel better. And so so I'm looking at it when we actually get to the point of what's the right way to really deal with it? How do we divert those so they actually are used or disposed of in a manner that's positive for the environment,
Sure,
rather than shipped off and buried,
I will say one of the really interesting pieces of the study that we did was finding so many of these products that are mixed materials. It's pretty startling how many exist out there. So right now it's a stream that gets diverted and ultimately landfilled elsewhere, but not here.
There's only, of those containers that have the boxed water that everyone thinks is great, there's only 2 places in North America, one in Canada and one in the US, that can break those down and sort the different materials. But they sell it as though it's the best thing ever. Look, this isn't plastic. This is great. And what you find out when I looked into it is the energy to produce it was more, the energy to move it all around was more, and then they couldn't break it down.
Well, if you remember the reports regarding K-cups when they first started,
Yep.
It was the next best thing. And then the inventor went against his own invention and said is like the most detrimental to the environment, product of the year.
Exactly.
Rita?
Yeah, I had a couple questions, but I know we've mentioned this a couple times. I saw there's an organization in England called Cup Club that I shared, and they are producing these cups that people don't want to steal, so they're not that pretty, but they're trying to get them into all the coffee shops in London, and then there's drop-off points all over the place. And when I was doing some research on them, at the bottom it says recycling isn't the answer, and that's, to your point, Matt, single-use anything is the problem. It doesn't matter what material it's made from. And I think that this is moving us in the right direction. But until recycling technology catches up with some of the new materials, or until we start putting in systems that do not rely on single use, it is all greenwashing. The other thing I noticed, and I don't know if anyone else has seen it, I saw in my bag of tortilla chips today, as I was trying to figure out where I was going to put the bag, that it says, this is recyclable by TerraCycle. Have you come across them at all?
I haven't.
It says it's on, but Anyways, that's something else that I came across. There's an organization on the mainland that has drop points as well for things like tortilla chip bags, things that we don't really have a way to recycle. And my question was, people keep asking me about rinsing, how clean things have to be. And my understanding is they don't have to run it through a dishwasher, but just a rinse, like a proper rinse, but not perfectly clean is fine. Or what would you
Frankly,
recommend?
the only thing that I would recommend washing out is going to be the recyclable products. Anything compostable, if it's already food waste contaminated, it's fine. It's going to break down. And the non-recyclable, non-compostable stream, it does not need to be rinsed at all.
Okay. And then the glass and plastic, a quick rinse is fine?
Yes.
Okay.
So my big question was how the haulers are going to be doing this.
Sure.
Because we called about like, do we need a third dumpster? Because we have all the trash picked up at the business, and we have a dumpster for regular trash, for cardboard, and then we have the recycling. And up until this point, the recycling was the plastic and the aluminum was getting commingled. So that's kind of easy to do, the 3 cans for recycling, but then it's the trash and how they're going to differentiate it.
I totally agree. So we're working with the haulers, and we'll get to the bottom, specifically to commercial waste as well.
Also, when people who have the in-home trash pickup, it's got to be really clear before all of our summer residents show up and vacationers.
Yeah, and that's why we're starting it now.
Yeah, so that's good.
We did a video with your recycling coordinator, Graham. She was great. Has 5,000 views on it. I would say the two things that I've seen, the two biggest themes coming out, the one question that we've already kind of addressed is what do you do with the plastic bags? We talked about that already. And the second one was the knowledge of where the Nantucket, the non-recyclable, that goes off island. That was a big eye-opener for a lot of people. And to explain the why, like if we did this perfect, nothing would go in our landfill.
Correct.
And that was the big eye-opener that I got from feedback that I got from people.
So you bring up a good point, and part of the idea of starting to discuss things as waste streams is as we move forward, we're going to be looking to identify specifically where our waste ends up. Generally, we know where it begins, right? It's at the point of sale, or you're ordering something and it's being shipped to you. But those are things that are under your control as far as limiting or just controlling what you consume. But once it comes here, that's your kind of drop-off point. It's up to us to then deal with it. So we want to let people know where dealing with it ends up. And that's, I think, an important piece because as we look at diverting it off island, it becomes someone else's.
Yep. You're right.
One other, sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Looking at this, I know, like, the buckets now, the blue ones are recyclable. A lot of places run compostable as green, and then I'm not sure what Nantucket would be, but I'm thinking, unless you've picked these colors for a specific reason, you may want to make this blue and this green, and then and start color coding. Anything recyclable goes into a green bin, and anything recyclable goes in a blue bin. Anything compostable goes in a green bin. Because you could color code this and start everyone thinking the same way. On pickup day, everything in the blue is a certain thing. I don't know. I mean, there's got to be, it has to be consistent so it becomes what everybody expects. Some communities have their, compostable alls in the same green container, and then they know that's only where composting goes. So.
Yeah, part of the challenge with the system we have here, particularly the trash barrels that we have around town, is to be historically sensitive, we don't have those color-coded containers for collection. We are challenged all the time with commingled, and even just watching folks at some of the facilities particularly I've spent lots of time looking at people dumping downtown or delivering trash to those containers downtown as well as the beach facilities, and it's really individual. Some people run up and just the closest one they get to, they throw it into. Others will go up and study the names on the can and then put something in. And frankly, we have a lot of foreign visitors that English is not their first language, and they can't read it. So there's a lot to it. I think standardization of the universal colors that are being utilized off island is helpful, and we could certainly try to incorporate that.
Yeah, I would just look, because that's where it's going. And,
Yep.
and I know I'm going to have to be doing this in my dorms, in my business, and I have to do something similar.
Sure.
And we're going to be, I know we're going to have to be training it, and here you go. And, I spend a fair amount of time as it is picking things out and pointing at people, and what are you throwing that out for? And,
We're also launching this. Graham, our recycling solid waste coordinator, is incorporated all of Public Works now. So we have this set up in our own buildings. Staff has received training and is off and running. And now we are looking to the building managers from all the other facilities to start one by one, bringing them on and getting all the staff trained. So ultimately, townwide, the municipal employees will be utilizing the same system within each building.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Florencia Rulo, for helping to try to make this understandable. Next is going from Nurnick to Nerda. Well, Larry announcements.
Hold on, Greg, do you want to do the thing about
I'm
the,
sorry. I was thinking. So, got a message from NCTV that the live streaming on the town's YouTube channel is not working. However, the live streaming on the NCTV 18 website is working. And I thought, who's going to know that if they're trying to find it on YouTube and they can't hear me? So, but you let people know. All of us. Okay.
Good evening. As the NRTA continues to increase awareness and promote year-round bus service, monthly themes targeting a specific group or audience have been created. So I'm here tonight to announce that February is Senior Citizen Month. Every Wednesday during the month, senior citizens 65 and older will ride for free. And now with the year-round bus service, getting to appointments and running daily errands is as simply as riding the wave. So 65 and older, Wednesdays, can ride for free. And this month will also be a good time for everyone to brush up on some of their NRTA history and facts for next month's contest that will also include a scavenger hunt for answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And Erica has an announcement.
I just wanted to let everybody know that there was a pre-construction meeting today for the Richmond development and the road improvements that are going to be occurring on Old South Road. Most importantly, I want to note that these road improvements are not, they're separate from the ones that are being proposed by the town. These are being undertaken by Richmond solely, not the town, and they are a requirement of their planning board special permit. The project is beginning next week. They're going to start their staging of things. People hopefully have already seen the signs on Old South Road on the corner of Fairgrounds and another one on the corner of Airport Road. They're proposing approximately a 12-week schedule, so starting next week and going through Memorial Day. They're going to be starting with drainage along and on the site, followed by the actual road work, which is going to include widening. The idea is to not close the roads completely, but to at least leave one lane of traffic open at all times. So traffic should be able to go through, but expect delays because traffic is going to be slower. If the road does end up needing to be closed for a short period of time, what am I trying to say? They're going to have detours going through the Richmond property. So they're going to try to make it as easy as possible. There'll be police detail on site at all times. So just wanted to let everybody know that.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Erica. There was some confusion on people thinking that things that did not pass previous town meetings, we were actually doing the work, and it was actually
all Richmond and connected to their special permit. So thank you for that. Public comment that's not on the agenda?
Good evening, Curtis Barnes. I've given you an outline of what I'm going to say, but I'd like to just have it on the record anyway. I learned yesterday when I went to FinCom that there is not going to be an article in the warrant to adjust the local portion of the short-term rental tax. A couple of weeks ago, I was here, and I think the presentation said that the average rental income in the summer was around $8,900, $8,500, $6,700, $8,900. And I want to remind a lot of us that we don't, those of us who live here don't get that kind of rental income. Those incomes are for the very high-end properties. I have a two-bedroom guest cottage. I rent it for $2,500 to $3,000 a week, and it's what helps pay my taxes, keeps me here, and as I've noted, it also helps pay for the extra cost of living here, where we're paying $1.50 more for gas and oil, which I do not understand because I don't think transportation costs are that high, and I would like to eventually ask the Attorney General to look at that situation. If you had placed a recommendation to adjust the tax on the warrant, I was going to, and I told FinCom, in fact, that's why I went there yesterday, to propose an amendment to your article that would exempt properties that rented under $3,000 a week, which is the small people who depend on this really to pay their bills here. I came tonight to see if since it's not going to be on the warrant, first, could an article be put on? I understand the selectmen have more discretion than citizens do in their articles, to put an article in to exempt properties in the $2,500 to $3,000 range. And if not, is there any other way in the budget that that kind of indication could be presented? So I bring this to you for consideration. I certainly will tell you that if nothing happens now, I will submit an article at the special town meeting to do that adjustment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Curtis. Any other public comment that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, there's no new business that I know of. Need a motion to approval of minutes, payroll, warrants, and treasury warrants?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Pending contracts. Any questions or comments from Greg?
Make a motion to approve pending contracts.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Consent items. We have a gift acceptance, Fire Department, Natural Resources Department.
Motion to accept.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Town Managers Report. Thank you, Greg.
This evening, we have our FY19 second quarter budget reports. First, we have the Airport Director, Airport Manager Tom Rafter.
Thank you. For the first 6 months of the fiscal year, although our employments are down and operations are down, our financial picture is improving, and our revenues were up about $1.8 million. Most of that attributed to the price of fuel as well as the additional fuel sales that we had. Our expenses were up about $1 million. Net earnings were about $900,000, and then once you bring in the retained earnings, it was about $1.1 million. You do all the transfers, and we're about $666,000 better than last year. When we add the net earnings to the retained earnings, the fund balance is about $5.1 million at this point in time. I do want to point out, though, that there is one large revenue item that is a one-time that may be reclassified, and that was about $259,000 in other income. It was a reimbursement for a program that about 15 years ago we finally just started getting the money in from the federal government, but it'll probably get reclassified into a capital project at a later date. So all in all, things are going pretty well in terms of the finances at the airport. Any questions?
One question, did you add any staff from last year to this year?
No.
No, okay. Because I'm looking at the pay, if I'm reading this right, we're looking at payroll from 18 to
Oh, I'm sorry.
19.
From 18 and 19, we did not next year, yeah.
Okay, so 18 and
There was
19.
one position, yes.
All right, because that went up 10%. Medicare is up 10%, insurance is up 4%.
Right.
So if you looked at if you add all those together, that's not sustainable within 2.5% or 2.5% plus new growth. It's, as a percent of our budget or anything else. So
No,
I just
we
have
added
to,
one in that, but we don't have any in the following.
right, okay, I just have to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Good evening, how are you? Want to comment for the second quarter, the first 6 months of this year is actually about 3% ahead of the year before. To date, we've put in 63 new services since July 1 to now. We're on pace to do about 100. That's what we projected out anyway. The one thing that has increased a little bit on the revenue side for us, we're seeing a big increase in commercial fire services. If you notice, we've been in town quite a bit. I don't know if there was a change in insurance laws or if people are being pressured to do it more than before, but we've done quite a few of them, and I think we have 5 or 6 more to go before the winter's out. So that was unexpected for us. We usually project 4 or 5. There's been a substantial increase in those this quarter, this first 6 months anyway.
Are people putting in mixed use? Are they putting apartments or are they, who knows?
I don't know what's going on. It's just fire service goes in, we stub it to the sidewalk, and the people pick it up. But we have one to do out on one of the docks. We got another one on Main Street to do, so there's been a pretty good increase in that. We did show a large increase in our professional services out of the operating expense from second quarter last year to this year. That has to do with the rate study that we're completing and the asset management program that we're building. And other than that, Wanacom looking pretty good. Financially, we're projected out to what we thought we were going to be and where we're going to be. Sconset actually for the first 6 months compared to last year's first 6 months, we pumped 8,000 more gallons this year than last year. Things are really slow right now in Sconset. I don't have to tell you guys, I think we have about 150 houses that are receiving water. 40 or 50 of those, it's such a small amount that it's almost not billable. So you're really looking at like maybe 100, 110, 115 people using water in Sconset. Revenue-wise, we have some things coming up. Services that should start soon on Cannonberry. We had someone came in and called us today about some possible projects on Plainfield, so they could see a little bump in revenue in the next quarter for some new services, as well as hopefully by the end of the current quarter we're in, we should have the cell phone carriers that are putting proposals together to go up on the Sconset Water Tower and the 2 towers in town. So there's been quite a bit of interest from all of them. But we're looking pretty good in both cases.
Yeah, same question I had to Tom. Between 18 and 19, did you add
We
staff?
did. We added a full-time admin person.
So that
up front.
explains you've got a 20% salary increase,
Yeah.
20% Medicare increase, 6% medical insurance.
Yep,
So
we
it's
added
new
a
person.
full-time person.
Okay, thank you.
And the Sconset, the professional services, there was a big bump there. Is it the same as
Well, what
Wanacom?
that had to do with getting the proposal written for the cell carriers.
Okay, I see.
So we've been cutting back expenses in Sconset because the flows have been down.
Yeah.
But we had to get that professionally done and then reviewed. So that's where that came from.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And David.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's enjoying the weather. I know I sure am compared to last year. No doubt about that. The enterprise fund is doing good. Total revenue is up about 2% compared to the same time frame last year. Our income from sewer permits are up also 1%. It has to do with a bunch of activity that everyone sees going on with all the construction. One of the things that's a little unusual is the revenue from sewer permits are down about 32%. However, the revenue from privilege fees are up 33%. That, again, has to do with a timing issue on payments coming in or projects maybe starting in 18 but not finishing along, or vice versa. It's not a worry at this point. We don't see any fluctuations on what we had budgeted for or anticipated, so that's moving along well. The debt service and everything like that, expenditure was up a little bit, 2%. Had to do a lot, again, with we're still feeling some of the effects from last year's force main, with just still different stuff coming in and other stuff like that. So, again, nothing that we are overly concerned with. There's been a fairly big reduction in some of our repairs and maintenance, and a big drop in some of our professional services stuff. That's only because a lot of our projects are wrapping up. We have a lot of little projects going on with OPM services or general engineering services, but all in all, we're looking very good. Some big changes that are coming, and as of actually today, we had our first actual live connection made to the brand new sewer systems that we've installed in Green Meadow and Hudson Farm. So Green Meadow was the first one to actually tie to the new systems. That went live today. That's going to start to roll in quite a bit. We already have probably 20 or 25 areas in Shimo that are waiting. They have plans ready to go, but we can't release it until they're inspecting now, as this week as we're speaking. So we're hoping to be able to release that area. We're hoping second, third week in April, maybe as late as the end of April, but we're just getting ready to put our grinder bids out in the following couple of weeks as well. So once we get our grinder pump bids out, bid, and then open and stuff like that, everything should coincide about the same time. But we're hoping right for the end of April. And then we're going to see a huge increase in sewer permits, sewer privilege fees, and a whole bunch of activity coming up. So the third quarter should look drastically different from this. One of the other things that we're doing in conjunction with the water company is we finally have been able to catch up and get the staff to go. We're doing a very large audit on past permits, going back 4 years or whatever, on all the connections that have been made, and the reports that we've either turned in between the departments to make sure everyone who should be getting billed is getting billed. We're finding some missed stuff, so we could see quite an uptick in some missed billings or reports that weren't timely enough or didn't get missed. But the audit that we're going through now is extensive, and we're working across the whole island, so we're finding some discrepancies that I've been working very closely with Mark, and his team and my team have been working extremely closely together on a daily basis. So one of the other things that we've been finding, and I did meet with the a new building commissioner today, is, and we should start to see another increase coming up. Somehow it got away from however it got away, is we're going out to do inspections on properties with one permit in our hand, where the guys are going out for an inspection, and they get there and they're finding 2 or 3 homes on the property, or 4 buildings, all connected to sewer, with one sewer permit. And it's whether they're photocopying them or what. We keep going down trying to pull files. Checklists aren't where they, so there's another collaboration going between us and the planning board to try to get this back into line. They had a big turnover of people. That's about when it seemed to happen, because there was a bunch of new people that came in that didn't really know what we were all doing. So we're finding probably 1 or 2 every week where we're showing up for one house inspection and there's actually 3 structures on the property. So we're trying to recoup those fees that were never submitted. And it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's just now trying to determine how that happened, where the disconnect was. But people were issued 1 permit and they built 3 houses. So it's become quite a challenge. And my guys between my crew, Mark's crew, we're all every day calling, hey, I just did an inspection here and there's supposed to be 1 house and there's 2, or vice versa. So we're very active and finding a lot of discrepancies, so that hopefully will start to reflect quite a bit here coming up.
Is that why the penalties are up for $1,000 from? 144?
It is a lot of that because we're actually being able to, if someone hasn't been billed, we can actually by law bill back 3 years. So we're finally starting to get into this. And it's a piece of the puzzle that we may not have anticipated to happen, but it's happening because of the crews that are in the field that have been trained now that are very keen on catching a lot of, they drive down the road and they'll call in and say, hey, someone's digging here. We'll call the DPW or water or something, and so we're finding stuff.
How many times do you think?
On a daily basis, it could be one or two a day.
How many properties? Really?
Yeah.
And do they split off the sewer line once it's on the property, or are they tying?
No, they're taking it. A lot of
lines
times they're one connection, but they'll split it on the property
they'll
line.
do a Y.
And sometimes they'll call for a inspection. Other times they won't. And we've had numerous contractors. Now we've actually made them redig the entire yard up. It's in the bylaw that we can do that. One of the other things that we have changed in the past year or so is the way disconnects and reconnects are done. They used to be issued one permit that said disconnect, reconnect. Once they got that permit, they never had to come back to see us. We found a lot of these multiple structures have been used on that one permit because they never had to come back in. We've now changed that. Every disconnect's a separate permit that has to be signed off before they can get a reconnect permit. And every one of those permits are turned into the building department and the plumbing inspector. So everyone's watching now, and we're starting to find a lot of discrepancies. So it's been a little while, but we're getting there. So
I remember back with Cora, we had that issue all around the island when we were trying to count how many connections and what would the impact. And there was a group of us that were put together to do it. I think you were on. I think you were on the group.
There was 300. There was a substantial amount now, and I mean we're not finding those kind of numbers, but we are finding.
We didn't close. But basically, my point is we haven't closed the hole yet. We're just closing the hole now.
Well, yeah, and it has to do a lot with one permit pulled, but there's a couple of structures. So working with Mark's team, they're on a daily basis, back and forth all day long. So it's the collaboration between all the three departments has been huge, and it's really helping find a lot of these. Because Rob will go down the road and say, hey, someone's digging today or whatever. So our guys go investigate. And so the teamwork has really become a lot lately. So it's been a really good thing.
Yeah, we found hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of people that just were never put in the system and never billed once. And it took, months to sort of get that into place. And, and I think at that point we waived, 10, 20 years of non-billing for some people just to get them into the system. So that, we just didn't have, the paperwork and the process was just really loose, and hopefully we're tightening it up.
Well, one of the problems I think you had back then too is now is if a house sells, the tax based, the list on the tax rolls don't change sometimes for a couple of years. So you're trying to get the money from this person, and the bills are going somewhere else, and the owner's just sitting there. And then all of a sudden one day we knock on the door and they're like, oh, I was wondering why I wasn't getting billed. So it's another thing we're finding a lot of, but a lot of field work's going on, and we're continuing on to what you guys did years ago.
Yeah, that was eye-opening.
I'm just wondering, David, is it more of a lost revenue concern, or is there any concern about there's more people using sewer than we thought?
No, it's definitely a lost revenue on both halves, where a water company can't bill or we can't bill. So it's been a lot of both, but we are starting to find, even every now and then I'll get a call from Mark with, hey, this residence is using 5 times more than the water next door. There could be a problem. Are you seeing any higher sewer flows? We'll go pop some manholes. It could find a broken water pipe in the house. It's just going down the drain, or someone has pumps going on, or there's 30 people living in the house. So a lot of collaboration between the departments is really helping to bring this to light. So.
Did you add any positions between 18 and 19?
We did. We actually added a engineering compliance officer who's taking over a better portion of the permitting and stuff like that. He was involved in meetings with Erica and everyone, so that's helping out. As far as adding anyone else, this year we have 2 openings right now. There's no additional people. It's just trying to backfill everything. But the engineering compliance officer was the newest position, yes.
Right. Okay. Then that explains, because you're up 10%, and
yes.
-6 on medical.
He went from a union position to a non-union position, so we've had to backfill.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David. All right, next on on manager's report. Eric, is it working?
I don't hear either of your mics.
Reggie, can you hear me? No. Yay. You can't hear Rita either, right?
Do you want to?
I'll just-
You both have been particularly intelligent tonight, too. I can't believe the audience missed it.
I know. We're witty. That's better, right?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Chair, next on the agenda is an update on the cable television renewal contract. When the board asked us to put this on the contract, on the agenda, we had originally were supposed to have a public outreach session last week, but it was canceled by our Comcast rep. He couldn't make it over. So I can still give you an update, but we don't have much to update. So we are, to remind you what this is all about, the town's cable license with Comcast expires October 13th of this year. So roughly about 18 months ago, we're notified by Comcast that we have to engage in a very strict assertion period in order to renew the license, should we wish to do that. So we've been doing that right along. It's pretty strict. They give us rules of what we're supposed to follow, public outreach, times, everything else, and we're right on schedule. So January through March of this year, we were supposed to start doing outreach to public forums, maybe another survey, maybe not. We don't really have to do it. So we're doing that. So the next one, the public outreach is right now scheduled for March 7th in this room. So we'll get more to that, but really it's about Comcast being able to get over here. So our intent is after that, we have a draft business plan that comes to the board, and then we start negotiating with Comcast. And it's just kind of a delicate balance because nothing's private. So once we present it to you, everybody knows what we're going to be asking for through the franchise fees. So Comcast will know. So that'll make it fun. But our goal is to have it all completed by October of this year, by September, so it can be engaged in October. So we're right on track.
And did you say it'll come back to us here for a decision in
It
April
comes
or May?
for board input, decision, how we want to present it before we go, and then the negotiation process is with Comcast directly.
Right, that happens first, and then it comes to us.
Well, we actually start working with you first,
Okay.
because we don't want to go to them if there's something that the board's
Right.
not going to,
Okay.
be supportive of. So that's why it's a little challenging. It's not like a normal. It's not protected by any of the exemptions under public records. So we tell you what we're going to go for, but that means Comcast will know. It's nothing really out of the ordinary. It's fiber cable to like DPW and to the sewer department, and just using getting more capital dollars from the franchise fee. And surprisingly, you have to negotiate that. They just don't give it to us. Yes. So and there's also more programming hours. We're asking for another channel specifically for schools, things like that. And we'll see what they give us. And hopefully for 10 years.
A little fun fact: we had an NCTV 18 meeting last night, and they in 2018 they taped 1,100 hours of government meetings, commissions, boards. That's a lot. That's good for transparency purposes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And based on stats to other communities, we've been working with Falmouth and Sandwich and others. We are actually high. We do a lot more broadcasting, which is great. NCTV does a great job. Except when YouTube goes down. Any questions? Great, thanks. So we'll get more information regarding the March 7th public forum. Next on the agenda is an update on the Select Board strategic planning process. Janet Schulte was supposed to be here this evening, but she cannot, so I'm just going to try to step in her shoes right now. The chair asked for just a quick update of where we are, to remind the public that we are engaged in a strategic process that kind of had a hiatus a little bit during the holidays, but we're jumping fully back into it next Tuesday. We have all of our initiative leads getting back together again with our contractor Novak to engage in where we left off. Janet did send me an email saying that she's very pleased. All the people, all the initiative leads are very engaged. Every strategic area, to remind everybody, the strategic areas are housing, environment, and transportation, and under which there are 3 or 2 goals. And some actually have a price tag to it, so we're working out certain plans right now, and that is what the discussion will be next Tuesday with the initiative leads and all of our program managers. So we're right on target. Is just kind of remind everybody that we're back at it again, and Janet did give a one-page update that's in your packet.
Thank you. Any comments, questions for that?
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Just trying to keep that in front of our minds, the strategic planning. All right, Select Board reports and comments. We review the January 31st Dreamland Select Board event. It was the Nantucket 2030 and beyond. 4 of us there. Don was under the weather, couldn't make it.
Conveniently.
I heard it was really good, though.
Yeah, it was great. So it was the 4
It is on YouTube.
board members up front, and we all gave a 3 to 4 minute opening, and then the next 45, 50 minutes was just the public talking about their vision for Nantucket 30, 40, 50 years from now. Some were concerned, some were aspirational. But it was some themes came out, but it was very impressive. I didn't know if any of the board members want to discuss anything about it.
I thought the format was great. It was excellent to have an opportunity. Can I yell? Thanks, Jim. I'll share with Jim. It was great to have an opportunity to listen for a bit. And it reminded me of a town hall format. So I thought the format was great. And I think our moderator, Denise Cronow, did a great job of keeping everyone on task. And I would hope to see more of these.
I spoke. Now, is this on?
That one doesn't work.
No, this one's not on. It is? Okay. I spoke to Dreamland today, and if we wanted to do another one in, say, the very last week of March, they'd be up for it. If the board wanted to, I got a lot of feedback that said we should do this again. A lot of people didn't know about it. And I just wanted to read a couple of the quotes. I tried to write down a quote from everybody who spoke. I just want to give a couple of highlights. One that we've heard here before that was really good is, "What's our gondola?" Mr. Fee. Making our own things on island with 3D printers. And again, we're thinking 30, 40 years from now, right? There was an 8th grader who stood up and spoke and find a way to project the future number of students in our schools. That was really nice to hear. Big city solutions take away from the magic of Nantucket. Design a parking garage to be turned into housing when we don't need it anymore. I hope there will be no utility poles in 30, 40 years from now. Thank you, Fran. Nantucket needs to embrace new forms of economy. We can earn whatever we want, and don't jack up the rates, jack up the power. I think one of the themes was, what are going to be some of our economic drivers 30, 40 years from now? It's not going to be tourism. That kept coming back in different ways. I found that interesting. And it's on YouTube. If you just go to YouTube and Google Nantucket 2030 and beyond, it'll pop right up. It's 57 minutes, and it's a good watch.
Not to put you on the spot, Don, but we each sort of had one major thing we were thinking about. Was there anything you had on the top of your mind if you weren't sick?
I'm still playing catch up from.
That's okay if you don't, because this is putting you on the spot.
I mean, I guess the things that I hope, the thing that I always talk about that I hope to see is that the Nantucket Shuffle will be very far in the rear view by 2030. I think that we really, really need to solve that. And I would like to see really reliable public transportation that people can really count on and really eliminate everybody being in a big car all the time.
One of the
that's
things,
not aspirational enough, but those are.
No, I think those were great, and those were actually a little bit missing from our conversation. And there was one comment someone said, when I think about Nantucket in 20, 30 years, I wonder who won't be here. And they were really speaking to affordable housing, and I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. And then the other one was I noticed some people from sort of younger generations talking about a time when we won't have cars. So I think that, the next generation coming up behind us is in line with what you're thinking about car reduction. So.
Yeah, I mean, you see it being so successful in other places where the buses are so consistent or people only use rideshare. I mean, it's definitely more urban, but I think that there is the opportunity here with the right resources put into it. and hopefully just personal vehicles will get smaller, and we'll figure out other ways to do things rather than everybody having big trucks. Coming from someone who's driving an SUV currently.
No, I asked what's your gondola, and I won't go the gondola story again. You've heard it enough, but I was asking that because all the quote unquote solutions we propose now all include more cars on we're not going to build that many more roads or that very many big roads, and those are traditional ways that it's answered. So I was saying, how do we get people moved from the airport to the Mid-Island to downtown and out to the various villages if we build in a more dense pattern in the villages and not just creep out into the suburbs with it? How do we get people around not on the roads? That's sort of the idea of what's your gondola. We all received something from Mary Longacre the other day, and one of the first articles she gave was something I've talked about for 20 years, is the feeder roads. The whole idea of a feeder road doesn't work, because the feeder, the idea of that is this road is faster and you get to your location quicker. So then everyone, if you think about it, the economics of it, everyone takes that road because, that's a quicker road, until it isn't. And then they go to the other roads. But then you're funneling everything to one place because that's quote unquote faster. And what you find when you do the math and you look at a grid system like we have downtown, in which we haven't replicated in a lot of areas because people don't want traffic going by their house and all the different aspects. But if you actually have more roads interconnected on a grid pattern and there are more options, then you're spreading the traffic out. And it's, that's sort of, and the math is compelling. In the article that she sent us, it really made it simple. And sort of from a good planning perspective, that's what we should be doing through all these areas. It's not going to solve the numbers of vehicles, but it might spread it out. And if there's an accident in one place, you're not backed up an hour and a half to the airport because that's the only choice. You have other routes to take. And even though it's not going to be particularly popular with some of the neighborhoods, like when we were doing it, Meadowview, or some of the ones out by Richmond were calling and saying, Matt, they can't connect. And I'd say, well, you shouldn't call me because do you want to go an hour and a half to get to town? Do you want to go 2 hours to get downtown? And they'd be like, well, no. And I said, well, they can't come through our neighborhood. Then what are we going to do? So I think we have to start really thinking, how are we going to, sort of build out the grid and build out the island so it looks like downtown, works like downtown, has trees, has sidewalks, but has multiple ways to connect. Counting on, a few major roads with roundabouts on them is not going to solve the issue. And then we have to find a gondola. So.
Well, that's the kind of thing it's like, or are we getting to something where nobody's going to have a car and there's just going to be transport that you can get into? I mean, we're talking maybe further down the road, but I mean, there's people designing these like little pods that you get into.
Transit X. That's my crazy one I'm on. But then that actually seems crazy, but it isn't, because it would replace phone poles. Have you looked at the site?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. It's out of Massachusetts. It's fairly new.
I saw something on the news.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I haven't been on the website.
And basically they're pods, and they'll hold like up to 5 people. They replace phone poles, so they're 14 feet high. They put the utilities inside the poles, so you lose the phone poles, but you gain pods. But the advantage of them is it's part of the reason people use cars is they want to go from where they want to go to the other place they want to go. They don't want to go close. You don't want to walk a half a mile and get close and walk another half a mile. If you set this grid system up with these, you put it in your phone, you hop in it, and it takes you to where you want to go. And what you have to do is have enough of interconnections that everyone's within a 5-minute walk, a 3-minute walk, and then it would replace car trips because it would be cheaper and it would be faster. And so the time from the airport to town with these things would be about 7 or 8 minutes. Going out to Sconset would be about 8 minutes, because the Sconset Road, they'd go about 120 miles an hour. And they're out of the way, they're not hitting anything, and you'd go about 45 miles an hour into town. So now I'm not I don't pretend to know that they'll work or how well they'll work or whatever. But I think the idea of it is, if you're talking 30 years out, and I didn't talk about this at the meeting because it was a little too out there, but if you're talking 30 years out, that's the kind of thinking you have to be having. And then you wouldn't need a vehicle. Or you'd need it to go to the beach maybe, or, who knows? So, they're neat. Transit X.
Man, I think because we had the strategic plan open on my computer here, and I think two of the things that we're doing in transportation, the goal number 2 and 3 is the one key sidewalk route, and then and the third one is shift the mode of choice of commuters from driving alone to using other modes by 6%. So I think we're focused on some solutions that aren't focused on cars at all. Well, one is reducing car usage. So I really love that we have the strategic plan, because I kind of push back on that all the, if we're going to build a new, like the Orange Street bike path, the capital debt exclusion we're asking for, that comes into this goal. So we do have some solutions for the short term. I think it's a great start.
Definitely.
And there's, I know I sent this article to you, Matt, a while back, Waze. Everybody's used Waze or heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
The Waze carpool function. It's not allowed yet on Nantucket. But so say I'm in Tom Nevers, I could look and see, Erica's driving by, she's coming by in 5 minutes. I could just, if she put it on the Waze carpool, I could just hop in, come into work. So it's like the existing traffic, you could just hop in if you wanted to. You could kind of opt into that. It's like a free carpool.
Yeah, that's very cool. I hadn't seen that.
There's also, the other similar is, they use an algorithm, sort of like Uber does, but it's micro mobility, so that you've got a bus, a 12-person bus, and as people log in, it's picking you up close to your door and dropping you close to your door. So it's not that, the traditional thinking in buses is a fixed route, and that's how we do things, and we can't do anything other than a fixed route. But what they're finding is, again, fixed routes aren't necessarily popular. If you actually have an app and now with GPS and everything, it can determine what's the fastest way to take you from your door to where you're going. And so someone will spend their 8 hours and then instead of 8 hours driving around and around, they'll spend 8 hours, most efficient way, taking people where they need to go. And so, that's sort of what my theory is, where we'll head with our off-season NRTA eventually. I think we'll find the fixed route in this time of year is not that successful, but I think if we had 1 or 2 12-people buses with an algorithm and that type of thing, I think we'd find there'd be hundreds of people using it every day.
It'd be much more efficient.
Yeah, so it's Waze, but it's like the next step of that. So I think it's Via is the one company that's doing it.
Anything else on this? Okay. Any committee reports, comments? None. All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.